Dr. Wendy, a very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us on the Independent Republic of Mike Graham. I mean, I've always known that that teenagers can quite easily manage to get their hands on a drink from time to time, but I didn't know it was quite as young as 11. I mean, that's quite a staggering fact, isn't it?
I think it's quite shocking, actually.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing is that we are a drinking culture. We do really need to acknowledge that. We need to look at it. Having worked in other countries, worked in Canada, people there don't drink nearly as much alcohol as we do here. People, my husband's Dutch, he can't believe that people just go out to get drunk.
Right.
In Holland, they do get drunk, but they don't go out with the purpose of getting drunk. So I think we can say, oh, this is shocking that the children are doing this, but actually, what are we doing as adults? What are we showing our children? I mean, in the pandemic, alcohol consumption went up by 25%. Right. And it didn't go up in France. And why didn't it go up in France? Because in France, people go out to drink with their mates and their friends. Here, people just drink at home in a different way. So we do have to be looking at ourselves and wondering what contribution we as adults have done to create this.
But is it a question of the amount we drink or the frequency? What is it? Because, I mean, we've all been to foreign countries. They drink, they have bars, they have restaurants, they have wine lists, they have beer that they make, they have their own spirits that they make. There's plenty of alcohol on sale, if you like. But what's the difference between the way they consume it and the way we do?
I mean, when I lived in Canada, people would drink maybe 5 units a week. I came back to this country and I was, regularly seeing patients that were drinking 21 units a week. And when I said something to them, they said, they didn't really see that there was anything wrong with it, even though government guidelines, which are actually higher than real health guidelines, are already at 14 units. So there's a culture here among people that is higher even than government guidelines. So we don't acknowledge the amount that we do drink, I think, is the truth of it.
Right. And what about these 11-year-old drinkers? I mean, the World Health Organization has done a study, presumably. How did they discover this particular piece of news, and where are those 11-year-olds getting the drink from?
Well, that's a good question. Why weren't they in school, by the way? But, that's an interesting question, actually, because there's been a lot more since the pandemic. There's been a lot more kids out of school than there were before. So is this contributing to the problem? We've also got depression and anxiety shot through the roof. What do people do when they feel a bit depressed and anxious? They go and find themselves a drink, So, and I think, it's no great surprise to me that it was the older it was not so much the older. It was surprised to me, actually, how young it went to, but it wasn't a surprise to me that people coming from more affluent backgrounds are drinking more because they've got more access to money, I think.
Right. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I know, for example, just from my own experience with having kids and my older sort of teenagers now, any teenager of mine that's been under 18 finds it very difficult to get a drink in any pub anywhere near where we live because they get asked for ID and unless you've got fake ID, I suppose. But I can't imagine you get fake ID when you're 11 because you look 11. No,
somebody else is buying that drink for them. They've got a mate that's buying it for them. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly right. But I mean, what are the parents doing? I mean, are we talking? But there's two things going on here because on the one hand, they're saying many affluent parents' children are drinking more. But presumably that's not the 11-year-olds because no sensible parent would let their child drink at 11, surely to God.
Agreed.
So presumably these are kids who might already be in all sorts of other difficulties.
That's how I read it. And that's why I brought up the whole thing about how many kids are not at school at this moment. It's the highest level of any time that we've got of kids not being at school. Right. And it's the highest level of, serious mental health problems in this age group since the pandemic. I mean, there's a shocking statistic that suggests that this generation of kids that have gone through the pandemic are going to take about 10 years from a mental health point of view to recover from it as a society, not necessarily the individual, but as a society to regroup from come back to where we were.
Right.
I mean, that's shocking.
I mean, sorry, go on.
Sorry, yeah. I was going to talk about the vaping. I mean, I was shocked at the level of vaping, but vaping is, I think, almost as big a problem, if not more
Right.
so.
Well, because we don't really know. I mean, the one thing at least we know about the alcohol is that you know what it does. You know what long-term health effects it's going to have. But nobody really knows what long-term health effects vaping will have because it hasn't been around very long.
And we are already in the medical profession starting to see the impact on the lungs. So we already see that. So it's fairly shocking. And I was very disappointed to hear that, they're bringing in a new bill to, ban smoking. But what about banning the vaping? I mean, they're
Yes.
not actually going to ban them. They're going to make it more difficult and change the packaging and reduce the flavors and make it less acceptable to children. Where's the banning, for that age group? I mean, what is this?
But the trouble is, they are banned, aren't they? I mean, you're not supposed to be able to buy vapes if you're under 18. You're not supposed to be able to buy cigarettes if you're under 18. You're not supposed to be able to buy alcohol. You're not supposed to be able to buy marijuana. But they managed to do it somehow. So I'm not sure that banning it even works, to be honest.
Well, that's a fair point, but I think I think making it, and I think the other thing is that kids are exposed to a lot of advertising, and so they do see on video games and also just watching TV, TikTok, whatever. There are things where they get exposed to the advertising, and it makes it something as cool to do. But I just feel that if it was banned in more places. And if there was, an absolute ban on advertising of it on any platform where there are kids, I agree it's difficult, but I think we've got a fairly lax attitude towards vaping, which I think we're going to pay in the long term a very high price for it.
Yeah, you may well be absolutely right about that. Dr. Wendy Denning, thank you very much indeed.